Okay, welcome back. This will be our open exchange for seminar 4. Susan, would you please introduce it again for us?
Sure. So anything goes now. We've had a lot of different subjects come up, including the different words that we've all um, come up with, inspired by, what are advanced concepts in biotensegrity, including words like pre-stress and force that we've been looking at for the last several weeks. And Well, it's what you bring to it. And you're all bringing something different. You're each bringing something different, which is really great. And then the other thing is that we did have a few research papers. Um, Mary, Bob, Chris, and I all put some research papers in. I'm hoping you're able to see them. I I've had trouble looking at Mary's because it's not. I usually have my phone read to me. And it's of a different format, and I haven't been able to do that. So I'm a very slow reader. But anyway, anything's on the table.
I had
Susan,
trouble finding the research papers. I looked all over. Where were they?
Me too. I'm totally lost on the page. Some things are on the third seminar, some others on the fourth. I'm
Chris,
lost there.
Chris,
So
maybe you should take us.
I will take you on a tour. I will let you know that I did. Susan sent the link out, I thought. Maybe I didn't link it in the email she sent. But let me just
There
share my
was no
screen.
link.
Okay, so that was my oversight. I apologize. Oops, sorry. Let me clean this up for you. So this is the advanced concept page. Obviously, you don't see all of this. We have the general discussion here. Nuno, I think, put something in there. I added the research papers at the bottom right here, Seminar 3, parting question, research papers,
Oh.
because I thought it would be easier to find there. Maybe I was not successful. Sorry about that. We now have a table of contents that Jason's been helping us with. And if we have time at the end, I'm going to ask you a couple questions about that. And this is an ongoing document. So right now it has till the end of seminar 3 on it, and he'll add seminar 4 afterwards. If you go into seminar 3, and way down at the bottom is right here, examples of research papers. Was that helpful, Susan, or was it too fast? It'll be
And then
on the
and then
video.
click on it, Chris.
So there you go. Here are the different papers that people have added so far. You can also get to this same place from where we were before. If you don't want to go inside, scroll down here, Seminar 3, Parting Question, Research Papers Examples. And that will take you to the same place. Is that helpful, Susan?
Yes.
And please don't hesitate to give me a little push, a little like tap, tap, tap. Oh, you forgot the link. Will you send it to me? Because maybe other people were also hoping for that link. Okay, back to you, Susan Lowell.
Yeah. So thank you for the papers that did get put in. I've started to look at the one Bob put in. It's really great to have a comprehensive overview of mechanotransduction and mechanobiology. It's very useful. Um, I hope you get a chance to look at what is an action. It's a really cool paper. Um, and so we've had a lot that's come up today. Comments, questions, thoughts. Go ahead, Nuno.
Yeah, yes. I want just to comment on something that came from my the first presentation I was going there, but Actually, Bob mentioned a word or two words that called my attention again. And you said you're interested in structure and function, basically. And I was reading on something on form, not structure, form and function. And it popped to my mind that form and function are things that are machine-based thoughts. We don't function. Nature doesn't function, doesn't have a function towards something. Nature exists. We can attribute functions to organelles, to beings, but this is a man idea. Like a plant doesn't have a clue of the function. I know we have conscious, so we are conscious beings that we exert that thing that we have, that capacity. But in my view, function is a machine-based property. Machines function and have functions. As in form, we don't have forms. We have structure, but we don't have form. Machines have forms. We are like whirlpools. We come up as the conditions are okay for us to come up, and then we disappear, and we keep on changing by the millisecond, nanosecond, microsecond. And I know it's not, and I'm using the responses that we have had on the Portuguese mini course. People are answering that there. When they see machine images and organisms and organic views, comparing them, many say, or some say, I feel safe as I did me myself when I saw Eileen's first showing those two images. When I saw the buildings and the city, I felt safe. I felt secure and at ease with something that I know that is linear, that has corners, that has perfect edges, uh, and an organic thing is moist, uh, changing, smells, confusion. There's no proper shape. It's changing. It's moving. It's bleh. But I now see that as something, something delicious, because I understand that there's where it's there where life emerges. Life has more to do with that than with a proper organic organized thing. So form for me has nothing to do with living matter. And when we use form, we are using a machine-based language, as in function. This is my
Yeah.
yeah.
It's going to depend on how you use the word structure, form. A jellyfish has a form and a structure, and it doesn't know that we're using those words to describe what it has, is the other thing. Jean-Claude Gimbertot, it reminds me, Nuno, said at one point, and maybe it was during that tea party, when he was trained as a surgeon, he learned about, order and efficiency. You keep things in order and things are efficient. And then he said, I was confronted by these images where there is apparent chaos, but there is still efficiency. What is that? What's going on? It also, what you said reminded me of the quote from Richard Feynman. So I pulled it up. If our small minds, for some convenience, divide this glass of wine, this universe, into parts: physics, biology, geology, astronomy, psychology, and so on, remember that nature doesn't know it.
Yeah.
So there's here we are, we're studying biology, we're studying nature, and we need to be aware of the frameworks that we're using. We got to start somewhere, so we've got to say, what is this organism doing? And then the other thing is the Arthur Lander quote that I have in my book, that biology is constrained to work. Something only survives if it's working,
Hmm.
right? Otherwise, it doesn't last, you know, billions of years. The
Ah,
strategy doesn't work. Yeah. So it's good. We have our frameworks.
yeah. Thank you.
Um,
No, thank you.
just my sense of like, I understand what you're saying, and I think that's true to some extent. But when I use the word, function, again, I can throw that through, the how big is the action paper? It's like what time scale and what space are we thinking of? Like your comment, I may agree, is kind of more of a macro level, but if you go back to starting smaller scales, I mean, there's certain parts of the body that will have a particular function, and maybe it's just to add a little bit here or to keep things efficiency or somewhat as a part, but it has a function in contributing to the whole and the efficiency of the whole. And so I'm looking at things, at some of those levels too. And I use the form, structure, and function just from the, as Susan, the authors used in the Moving Beyond Vesalius paper and talking about compartments and the compartments, and each compartment has a structure and a function, whether it be, on a macro scale or whether it be a nerve cell or a muscle cell or something else. So I think there's the macro function, the cellular function, as you go further, down the line. But our goal, or at least my goal as a manual therapist, is to try to remove any obstacles or inefficiencies that's not allowing the body to, act the way that it's supposed to act or perform what it's designed to perform. So that's my mindset of how I'm using those terms.
I'm sorry that there's a lot that we can go on discussing on what you just said, Bob. And in my perspective, and it would be a huge philosophical talk that I don't have the basis of knowledge to say this is like starting on the scale levels, time and space. That's also a man construct. We don't have scales in ourselves. It's just the perspective that we have. Can we have a different perspective instead of the scales? What then? What do we do if we lose the scales and the compartments and the? How can we see life if we don't have all that? It's a huge it's a huge question. We lose our ground completely, but there are people losing their ground slowly. I see, for instance, the work of Leonid as he perceives and as he sees the body evolving and reshaping and etc. And how he describes it. He doesn't go into scales. Then he talks on scales. He defends scales. But while he does the observation, the postural observation, the movement observation, it doesn't see scales. It doesn't talk on scales. It talks on shapes and feelings and emptiness and it talks a different language. So how can we find that different language that will do a zero much of our science and thought? It's very difficult for us to go there, in my perspective. So I don't want to take the time.
Oh, it's good. Susan, your hand has been up.
Um, as a teacher in a Western culture, I'm very comfortable with what Bob said about starting with something like some sort of definitions or concepts of structure and function. It feels like in a class of new students, that's a very comfortable way to start. I personally like patterns. I work with patterns. I like patterns. I look at patterns in nature, in myself. That has been very comfortable for me. I really liked Mary's phrase earlier. She said movement cues. And I feel that's a lot of what I'm doing in my clinical sessions is offering the way biotensegrity, my exposure to it has changed is my movement cues are different than they used to be. Instead of guiding maybe a specific kind of step-by-step pattern, it may be something like whatever position you're in right now, change your weight bearing, change your pattern of weight. What does that do? What do you know? I mean, I'm just trying to come up with some examples, and I go in and out with clients between more of what I would call a biotensegrity languaged kind of movement cue and a more traditional one where I see the client is extremely uncomfortable with that kind of ask and is much more comfortable with now bring your attention to your right foot and do X, Y, or Z with your right foot. And I think clinically and in terms of teaching, I think I'm going back and forth between older paradigms and the biotensegrity paradigm, and I'm flowing in and out of it more. And I find some level of I see in Nuno defining more concrete kinds of things for people to wrap their heads around is more problematic for him, where for me it's kind of my comfort zone, and then from there I can take off in novelty or in experimentation. So it's just I think coming from a different sense of ground.
Can I just answer very quickly? In my practice, I practice according to the old paradigm still. I'm trying to put the lens of biotensegrity and this new language in my work, as I read. But it's not easy because I've spent 30 years working in my profession, and I'm embedded in a language, in a knowledge, and it's difficult to get out of it. I'm just trying to question things that now are so becoming so evident to me, so clear that I'm still there, but maybe there's a way to do something different. And that's in my perspective, how I can do something different, not just by using different words, but by acting differently. If but I'm using function, structure, form, patterns. I'm looking for patterns too. I work with patterns, although I know that patterns can lead to things like Nazism, choosing groups of people. Those are patterns in society. In society, patterns lead to to people being different from other people. So I'm still working with all of that.
But then
It's just a philosophical question.
nature has her patterns as well, right? Winter, spring, summer, fall, the spirals of the universe, the Fibonacci spirals that we see in flowers and shells. And so not all patterns are bad, right? And what are nature's patterns? And why is it Mina Bessel who says, why does nature keep making these shapes? When she's looking at like riverbeds and the way capillaries and you know the circulatory system looks similar, branching, the stuff that we're looking at in constructal law as well. She says, why does nature keep making these shapes? So, and then pattern is a human word, right? It's not like nature wakes up and says, I'm going to make a new pattern today. I'm sick of the old one. It's a completely different non-human framework. So how do we connect with that and touch it and move with it and become informed by it? It's great. I love your frameworks and questions.
Was that Rebecca Bedell, Susan?
Mina Bissell, I think is her name, the cancer researcher.
Oh, okay. Because Rebecca Bedell has a book, The Anatomy of Nature, that I have, but
I
Nina
don't know her
Bissell.
work. I don't know her work.
Okay.
This is
Nina
the other
Bissell.
thing about there being so many of us. Nobody can cover all of it.
I was gonna say, I mean,
I reject that.
I applaud you for asking that big question because I feel like we're all, coming at it from different directions, but by asking those questions, we're going to end up in the middle somewhere. I mean, and because I think it's all appropriate for where we're going and then getting into the application of it. So I mean, I'm learning so much from everybody. I mean, I need to think in those bigger terms. I've learned so much just by watching Bruna. I mean, just her use of imagery is just, spectacular to me and trying to incorporate some of that because it's just you're trying to teach people to move and all of a sudden I find myself saying it's like, okay, I want you to think like you're a jellyfish because I heard Bruna say that once and it was just magical. It just kind of, works really well. But in terms of paradigms, I just had a brief example yesterday. I was working with a client and she said her shoulders were stiff and I saw her standing and she's standing. She was an old gymnast, so her knees are hyperextended and she's kind of in a lumbar extension, kind of a sway back. And so I said, just slightly bend your knees. And it's like, now raise your arms up over your head. It's like, wow, that's so much easier. It's like, well, you haven't, you put a little flexibility into the system. So, I'm more than happy to continue the discussions because I think they're fascinating.
Great. Susan, you got your hand up again?
I do.
No, it's fine.
I like to. I have a lot of questions. I one of the things I run up against in working in classes or with clients, not so much with clients anymore, but I still take a few clients. I'm in Berkeley, and I'm right at UC Berkeley, and so I get a number of professors as or graduate students as clients, and it's absolute heresy for me to suggest that the brain and the nervous system are not at the hierarchical top of the heap. So I try to circumvent that, coming right out and being so direct as I did a couple of times. And one client almost walked out on me for my dunceness. And so my question is, we're up against these very, very strong, ingrained paradigms. What do you mean muscles don't move bones? What do you mean there's no real origin and insertion? What do you mean muscles don't shorten and lengthen in the traditional sense? So one of the things I want to do, like in my video series, is take some of these phrases and really incorporate them, because that's what I get pushed up against. And so I think neural correlates are very important, but they're in the mix. They're in the integration. They're in the overall coordination and spatial and temporal scales at all levels. And so I don't want to avoid being able to talk about the brain or the nervous system, but I want to start developing an ease of language where I can start integrating neural correlates that people are used to in my community, or some people are used to in my community, into a biotensegrity model, and it's a bit mind-boggling for me. I'm open to how other people, if they've run into this, and how they deal with it.
Well, Susan, one thing that I would say is I don't know if have you read the paper What Are Nervous Systems For?
Yeah.
Because I mean, to me, it just comes down to is what saying the role of the nervous system, is efficiency. And so it's I mean that's its purpose. But the way I'd start to describe it is, embryologically, when does the nervous system develop? I mean, it starts to develop like week 3. The brain's not fully developed to week 8, but the tension compression forces started at conception. And so, it predates it. So it's not like the nervous system doesn't have a role, but to say it doesn't run things, well, things were running itself for, at least 8 weeks until you've got a formally functioning brain. So, sometimes to me, I can explain things, if they like things science oriented, I can explain things embryologically that way and saying, okay, this is how the system started. The system can function and now they integrate together and they have to work together. And, I cite some examples of things is like where I just did things unthinkingly. I mean, but my body was able to perform it. And so, my kind of view to some extent is the body may be able to move efficiently kind of on its own, but the role of the nervous system, I think there's two roles in the nervous system, or amongst many, but one is to the body's able to move, but the nervous system reports back of whether it's accurate or not, whether it's actually accomplishing what it's designed to do, and the other is danger. I mean, if there's something's about to be torn, something's about to be this, or there you see something, that's dangerous to the body, then I think the nervous system has a higher role. But other, those are two instances, but other instances, the body, is capable of some movement on its own without it being, preordained, and maybe it's at the reflex level and everything else. But that's how I try to start the conversation. If they want to talk science, I can talk science and try to say, wait a minute, you may want to let's think about this a little bit, because things function, even before the brain was even formed.
Yeah, and also the idea that where does that idea come from? The muscles move the bones. Where does that goes back at least to Avicenna, right? Even Sina, however you want to pronounce it. Has it ever been questioned? Where does the idea come from? And Jaap van der Wal, to your point, Bob, teaches, he'll show you the developing embryo. It doesn't have a heart, but the circulatory system has begun to differentiate itself, and it has a pulse. Okay. So the heart's not pumping the blood. The system is pulsing itself. And then the heart comes in later. So just all of these questions, I love the idea of the developmental, framework, as well as just the historical and kind of paradigm framework.
But yeah, the vessels form, initially because the system needs some circulation, needs the resources, needs all those other different types of things. But as it becomes more complex and it needs a greater pump to move things around, then all the vessels kind of consolidate and wrap around, and the heart's formed as a result of it. But in the beginning, the body's able to sustain all its needs with just, the gentle pulsing of the system and the vessels that are formed. So, but it's fascinating. But that's how I would, Susan, that's how I would approach them is start, talking about things that they may be able to understand.
All helpful.
Susan,
All helpful. I've tried many different things. I had one client who was appalled that I compared her. By reference to human beings, I was comparing her to a paramecium as an example of life, and I thought she was going to punch me because she doesn't even think she's an animal. and maybe that's questionable at this point, but I mean, people are. It's been very interesting to have different reactions, and some clients absolutely don't care. They go, "Fine, just guide me and make me feel better." And that's okay too. I mean, you've got every kind, but I do want to develop, and these are all good ideas. I do want to develop a series of videos that speak to some of these issues that I've confronted with clients, and Steve in his videos does a really good job of. He'll start with a list of things and he'll go, and none of those things are true, and then he goes into why they're not true, and at the end he goes, let's back and review, and those are good. I like that kind of format because it's enticing, it's fun, but people are really attached to their brains and nervous systems. I had no idea. I mean, I
And I
am too
just
attached
understood.
to my brain and my nervous system, but I think you get my point.
You know?
I just want to give a quick answer to your question, Susan Lowell. What is a muscle for? You asked a muscle. Why do we give it the function of moving bones? Because it was given that function to the muscle. We give the function to the muscle, and it stayed.
Yeah.
We could have given any other function, but it was the function that we gave.
And so it's historical,
Yeah.
it's entrenched in the history.
And we keep giving functions to things.
Mhm.
And I think that historical perspective is a great way to come at some of these things because if people kind of understand historical time.
Yes. And they think they're being very modern when they make these statements. They think it's established as opposed to entrenched assumption.
Yeah.